Let me be still and listen to the truth. This is actually a very powerful lesson, something that has resonated in my mind often, and especially getting into that what does it mean to give and to receive. So this actually does take it to a much greater depth than we on the surface like to recognize. But just to explain it, I remember the first time in which I did this lesson that I saw a visual about to give it and to receive about holding a ball. So there's this hand, or my hand, either way, holding a ball, and it held it still. And it said, this is to give, and this is to receive. And it didn't change. Nothing changed. It's the same thing. So it's a pretty interesting concept when you actually start to get much deeper into it, which I'm excited to talk about. Getting into that perspective of the transparent, illuminated spiritual reality, because you understand it a little bit better when you recognize what an alternate dimension is. Now, there is a vibrancy, but a certain beat, a rhythm. That's it. A certain rhythm that is occurring in this physical perspective and this say mind perspective of the fourth dimension. So this is contained in, like the 7 notes of an octave and the 7 colors, the frequencies of a rainbow, and everything why there is essentially 7 different frequencies, which can be, say, 13 in the sense of what, yes, I know you're like 14, right? But if you've ever seen a double rainbow, the violet is the same in the middle on the second rainbow. It's actually one violet. I know. Okay. But to get into that is why it is about the perspective in which we see in this dimension. Higher dimensions have more frequencies, lower dimensions have less. So as you actually go into a different set of frequencies, a different dimension, you then start to even hear different things that are occurring right in this moment. Okay? And you hear more or less of what is occurring right now, or you see more or see less of what is occurring right now, because a dimension is seeing more or less of the same perspective of exactly the same thing which you're looking at. I know, it's pretty amazing. So in this sense of what I'm saying is that in the same tones and the same music and the same meditation in which you can be experiencing, you can all of a sudden start to hear what would be voices or angels singing, or different occurrences of different things happening in this very same instant. So in the same place in which you seem to be sitting quietly, in this same location called your room, or whatever place that you meditate, where you're sitting, you can actually, if you actually get out of the same perspective frequency of these dimensions and start to see more or less, depending on which way you're going. It often is always saying dropping down. So I go down to the experience of God, which is referring to going down to the 0th dimension, or the 1st dimension, or perspective of Christ. So that's in the sense of going down, you're going down in perspective of dimensions. And so you start actually hearing that there's, yes, less frequencies, but also what I would say is the voice of God. To put it in frequency perspective of 3rd dimension, even as I say dimension, let's just use the word dimension. It can be with any word, but let's just use the word dimension. In a lower frequency, it's more like I have a feedback protection thing going on that cuts me off. Yeah. Okay. So That's just an example sake. Just like if you go higher in frequencies, that means there's less essentially space in which these frequencies occur. So you got dimension. Okay, so going higher up, you're actually you're starting to think faster, and so your perspective on the world is faster. Okay, thinking down, your perspective on the world is slower. So it's happening right now. You're hearing voices. In the perspective right here, it would seem like the higher perspective is faster. In this perspective right here, you would think the lower perspectives are slower. Okay, but when you're actually there, it's the same. It's the same speed that you're hearing right now. So you actually, when you get to there, you start hearing this essentially booming voice of God. Okay, this booming voice of God that's really talking all the time. And so you go out of the perspective of understanding and comprehending physical terms of other people talking and stuff, and you start hearing this where there's nothing else. Because the frequencies essentially disappear, and the perspective of that, say, frequency of hearing quite literally the voice of God speaking to you. So it's amazing when you actually are firsthand experiencing it. So even as previous few lessons, and of course every day, taking time to meditate, even just 5 minutes, practicing of going down or up, changing your perspective, having that what's the word, forgiving of all the dimensional perspective definitions, allows yourself to drop down, forgiving and letting go of all the temptation to believe in the physical world, going down temptations, letting go of temptations, letting go of judgments, letting it be as it is. You'll find that when you lose yourself, you find a different perspective of yourself. It's a different dimension in that same way. So yes, it's a booming voice because there's literally nothing else occurring. That voice, a representative of God, say the Holy Spirit, is not as if it's something else. This is the voice of the Holy Spiritual universe. It's a representative. So in the same sense, often it's reported, even in my own experiences, of hearing this, but like trillions of them at the same time. And you can refer to it as angels singing. And it happens all the time. I mean, it's happening right now, but you are in the perspective of where it's not happening. You're in the perspective of this physical dimension, you see? So in the same sense of seeing is where I'm talking about the transparent, illuminated perspective of the same reality. Now, of course, A Course in Miracles is attempting to get you to the fifth dimension, and it's required that you accept Christ as yourself. So it's always talking about going down to discover what the first dimension is as Christ. You're attempting to discover what Christ is so that you raise your vibration in the sense of going to the fifth dimension. It's pretty phenomenal. That's pretty intense. So it's hard to describe, as I'm just using the symbols of the world to describe it, and that's, but essentially meditation is still required. Meditation all throughout all these lessons is very essential, but I'm telling you, it can be done as fast as this. You just simply change your perspective. That was it. Now, it does not require that you take an hour. It does not require that you do 27 hours. It's not required that you even take 5 minutes. You just have to know what you're doing. Once you recognize what it is to do that, then it only takes a millisecond. I mean, even that, you can be on a continuous basis of the perspective of meditation, a continuous prayer, and recognizing that. So being a messenger of God is someone that is essentially in tune with alternate dimensions and hearing and recognizing that our minds actually perceive 3 dimensions at once. And we just want to recognize that it's more than just physicality, and that you can hear the truth while you also hear, say, the illusion. And you're hearing me talking. You're also hearing the voice of God in your mind. You're also hearing crazy delusions in your mind as well. So it's all a part of it. So until you train your mind to actually see past the delusion of your mind, which literally is hand in hand with the delusion of the world, then you can actually tune into it at any time, right? Tuning into it at any time. As we've discussed this before, we're making sure that it's clear in this lesson, and that you really don't forget, hey, let's tune in again. Let's keep trying to tune in. I know it doesn't make sense until you actually do it, until you actually discover it. But when you do, it's going to make absolute clarity, make beautiful, wonderful sense. And you're going to realize, holy crap, it's been here the whole time.